Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be creating a sci-fi render using Cinema4D and Octane. Let's get started. So by the end of today's video, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. What's really great about this is we're going to be relying on the strengths of the Octane render engine, specifically displacement and volumetric scattering. I think this render engine has some very specific properties that others don't necessarily have that can work to our advantage as artists. By the way, if you're interested, you can check out my Octane Render Masterclass in the link below. It is full of over 12 hours of videos and everything that I wish I would have knew when I first got it started creating digital art with Octane and Cinema4D. So if you're interested in supporting the channel, supporting me and keeping these videos coming, and learning a bunch of other extra things specific to Octane and Cinema4D, you can check out the link below. So we're starting off with a blank slate right here, and the first thing I like to do, and this is something I've been doing in the past few months, is just blocking the scene out first and finding a nice camera angle. So I usually just like to drop in a few primitives, start with my camera, and get that aligned. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want this to be more dramatic and kind of isolate our subject a little bit. So longer focal lengths will work better for that. We're going to start with 50. Also, since we're going to be going down a canyon, I think it's going to be great. It's going to kind of compress the layers together. And I can show you the difference between the two focal lengths and what they kind of do compositionally once we set up these canyons. So I'm going to drop a plane in. I dropped the floor in, so we'll name this one floor. And then I dropped another one in, and we'll just call this one of the walls. So wall 1. There's two ways we could do this. I'm going to do it with a cloner, and that's because I don't want to do two separate displacements. I want the displacements to be the same. So I'm going to drop this wall under our cloner, and then our cloner is set to grid mode, which is fine. Something I need to do as well is change this orientation of this plane. So to Z plus in my situation is going to be kind of what we're looking for. That way we have these kind of lines going down. Under our cloner, we just need to do only one on our X, Y, and Z. So we'll do 0, or we'll do 1 here, and then 2 there, and then let's separate that. There we go. So what we're doing here is we're just essentially doing like a mirror modifier if you're working in Blender. Just something simple like that, and it kind of mirroring the two. You could also do this if you are in Blender with an array modifier. By the way, don't feel like you have to have Cinema4D and Octane to follow along. If you're using Redshift, Arnold, Corona, they'll all work absolutely fine. The workflows will just be slightly different, but you should get similar results by the end of the day. Part of the reason that I am using Octane for this specific task is I actually created this in Cinema4D Redshift, Cinema4D Octane and Redshift, and Blender, and I found that Octane works the best because of what I'm about to show you with this displacements. I think Octane has the best displacement system out of all the render engines simply for speed. Now, if you're trying to get extra detail or extra subdivisions, Octane is limited to 8K, while Redshift and others can go higher. However, it starts to limit your viewport performance as well. So what we'll do here is we'll take our floor and we'll just expand that right there. And I'm just going to make, you notice I changed my metrics to feet, and this is great because I like to work in scale. So I'm going to do 150 feet wide, and then over, let's just do 800 feet long. There we go. And the same thing with these walls is I'm going to make them 800 feet as well. This is just so I can get an idea of what we're working with, and then our height. Oh, let's do 250 at least. You have to remember, this is halfway in between, so it's really only about 125. So what we can do is go to this and pull it up. Whoops. We're going to want to grab the cloner, by the way, when you're transforming cloned objects. There we go. Now we'll go to our cloner, and we're only 5 feet apart. So a canyon, maybe we'll do 50 feet. And that looks pretty good, but we have nothing to scale here. And something that's really important if you are going to try to build something to scale is to drop some sort of figure in there. So we have our default human, our default mesh human right here. And then we're just going to drag them forward. Something like that. And then another thing I'm going to do is make sure nothing is rotated. Everything seems to be good, except our cloner is off a little bit. There we go, 90 degrees. Now we have this nice symmetrical composition. I'm gonna set our view clipping to large, I think that's going to be more than enough for that. Now what we can do is start to align our character. Also, when I start off with a camera angle, I usually do start off with the end resolution in mind. So this is going to be, let's say for Instagram, so we'll do 1350. We'll do a height of 1350 and a width of 1080. And then once we click this lock button, Octane will lock to that. Now let's go ahead and get our camera leveled out. So we'll go to our coordinates and we'll do 0 there and 0 there. So we're looking dead on. We'll say our photographer is about 4 feet up, and then our X position we'll do 0, and then our Z position we can pull further back and kind of just find some composition that we like. Something I want to do is slightly tilt up the camera, so I'll just go on one of our axis of rotation. It's going to be our P axis, and then just point up. Now this is great compositionally because it's going to provide leading lines. Not only do we have leading lines here, but we also have leading lines here, and they're both leading straight to our subject. We also have, there's also an idea in compositions known as the vanishing point. So like our subject is at the vanishing point, which is also going to draw the eye forward. And later on, we'll use lighting to shape this as well. Speaking of lighting, before we start jumping in with lighting, which we could, I noticed that this wall is a little too short, so I'm going to go to our wall right here, go to our object, we'll do 255 feet, let's just do 300 right there, and now it should vanish all the way, and then I also can kind of pull this up a little bit right here. There we go. If you're doing like this daily type sci-fi render, it's easy to get kind of lost in the details of things, like if you're trying to create this super advanced shader or this crazy lighting setup. What I like to do when I'm doing daily renders like this is I just like to step back and think from a compositional standpoint, and then once your composition is set up, your lighting and materials will kind of follow along. I'm liking this so far. So this is where it gets kind of fun. We're going to use a Mograph displacer, and this is something I've been doing pretty commonly lately, is displacing on top of displacements. So we're going to use the Cinema4D displacement first, and then we're going to later add more detail to that with the Octane displacement. First thing we need to do is I'm going to go to our view right here, and I'm just going to go to display, and let's do a constant shading. Actually, let's do hidden lines. That's great. You'll notice we have a 10 by 10 subdivision. Let's go ahead and crank that up to 100 by 100. That's pretty good, but we'll go 1000 by 1000, and that might be too much, but for now that's going to be enough to work with. If Cinema4D gets too slow, we'll take it down later. So automatically when we drop our Mograph displacer on, we have a default height, and that's usually in centimeters. That's why it looks weird in feet. Let's go ahead and just do 5 feet for now. I think it's pretty reasonable to have canyon walls displaced about 5 feet. That is in the forward and backwards direction, I believe, so that's going to be 10 feet total, depending on the type of noise you use. Let's go ahead and load in a noise. So under the shading tab, we'll go to noise, and I've experimented around with 3 noises. There you can see right there. It's updating. I'm going to just pause Octane for now, and I want to focus strictly on the Cinema4D viewport. Before I do that though, I'm gonna go to animation tags. Actually it's gonna be under rigging tags. Go to rigging tags, and then let's drop in a protection tag, which actually is it under animation tags? Nope, we'll just search it. Shift C, protection. It is under rigging, so there you go. And that's just to protect our camera from moving accidentally. If I scroll here now, it's not going to move around. Okay, that looks great. So what we'll do is we'll go to our displacer right here, go to our noise. First off, our scale is way too small, so let's jump up in our global scale. That looks pretty interesting right there. Something you need to realize is that I think Cinema4D has some of the best noises in the business. I've used Houdini and Blender, and obviously they have their own noise systems. The render engines have their own noise systems, but I really love Cinema4D's noises. So when you can, take advantage of this noise system, because this program has some of the best. So I just did a very subtle displacement here. We scaled up by 2, and we're getting an interesting look. So right now what we could do is everything's really flat. That's because we have no lighting. It's just a 360 HDRI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in a Octane area light. So we'll go to Objects, Light, and then we'll do a Octane area light. We'll just drop that in right there. And this is going to be, for lack of a better name or idea, it's just going to be our key light. And it's going to also serve as a practical. So this is going to kind of be the main light driving our composition. I'm going to expand it up, and then it's facing the wrong way, so I'm going to coordinates, and then I'm going to rotate it. There we go. Now it should be, oh, wrong way. We want it facing towards us. And we'll do 180 degrees. And now the light is facing us. The next thing we need to do is drop in an HDRI environment, and now we have the light right here. Along with that, we're going to go into path tracing, OCIO, and then we're going to go to our camera imager, OCIO, and then ACES, sRGB. Another reason I love Octane is because it's just that simple to get ACES set up. You don't need to transform any textures or anything. This is because Octane is a spectral render engine. So unlike an RGB renderer, like I use Redshift a lot, and it's an RGB renderer, which is great. It's one of the reasons it can render out scenes faster. It only calculates 3 samples for a red, green, and blue pixel, while Octane has to calculate 4 samples per pixel. It has to calculate a red, green, blue, and a spectral sample, which is the light wave itself, which gives it that Octane look that everyone loves, and that's the really realistic, dramatic look. But it also eats into render time, especially when working with volumes, as you'll soon see. So we dropped in our HDRI environment. I'm going to just disable surface brightness. And what that does is when you disable surface brightness, you can scale your light, and it's not going to make the light brighter. Actually, the light will appear to get darker, but that's because it's being distributed over a larger surface. So essentially what that allows me to do is just scale our light around and not affect the light's brightness. It's going to maintain the same amount of brightness. It's just going to be distributed over a larger area. I like to do this if I'm still playing around with my lights. That looks pretty good right there. Already this is really interesting and abstract. We could go to our displacer and we could play around with the noise. So we could do an uber noise, which is always fun. Let's see what that looks like. That looks interesting. Maybe if we scaled it up, it would look a little bit better. I like that too, actually, but I did like this look as well. Let's go back. Oh, wrong noise. Let's just do it. Luca also works really well. This is really up to you and what you want to see. Okay, that looks nice. Let's go back. I'm going to do noise, just regular old noise is our base one. And then Octane's going to update. That looks great. What we could do if we wanted is we could increase the contrast, which is going to change the difference between the brightness and the dark values, which is going to make the displacement a little bit more dramatic. But if we want to displace more, something else we could do is go to our displacer. And if we go back to our object, we have a height of 5 feet. Let's do a height of, let's say, 8 feet. Now we're displacing 8 feet, which is going to encroach a little bit on our composition. So something else we could do here is go back to our cloner, and then we can go to the object itself, 50 feet. Let's do 60 feet, and it's going to widen up this a little bit. Okay, that looks nice. Now I just need to make the light a little bit bigger, and we have surface brightness checked, so the light is not going to change in brightness. It's not going to get any brighter as I scale it up, which is what I'm looking for. This looks pretty good. Another thing we could do is we could do another displacement. So there's 2 ways you can stack displacements. If you were to go to the, let's say you were to just restart and do a regular displacement. If you did a layered one under here, let's see, shader. So we did a noise, but then there's different types. If you did like a layered displacement, you could stack them together. But what I like to do is I just like to visually stack them like this. So this is our original. So this is going to be, let's say, our large. I'll just do L for large. And then this one's our medium displacement. So I'll do M for medium. And then I'm going to do a noise shader. And then what I want to do is I'm just going to pause Octane so it's not updating constantly. I'm just going to take a look at this. We're going to try to find, sure, we'll do this shading for now. Now we can play around. I kind of like the look of the Uber noise, so let's add that on. And let's go ahead and increase the global scale quite a bit. And it should update in time. There we go. So we're getting some interesting texture on there. Let's go ahead and click render again. And we can kind of see, okay, so it's just making it a little bit more dramatic. I'm gonna go back to our large noise and increase the height to 10 feet, kind of displace it out a little bit more. That looks good, and then we have some medium displacement there. Honestly, we don't even necessarily need to do octane displacement, but I'm going to because you'll see how much detail it adds in. So I think I'm ready to start shading these walls. One thing I want to do is I'm going to open up Bridge right here. I prefer to use Bridge for all my texturing because I use a wide variety of programs, and Bridge is compatible with all of them. And I use a wide variety of render engines as well, but feel free to use any kind of texturing service, or if you even recommend a texturing service, let me know in the link below what you use, or in the comments below, because I'm always looking for, I'm always looking for tools to help me as an artist. So if you have a texturing service that you really enjoy, let me know in the link below what you use and why you like it, and I'll definitely want to check that out. But I love Quixel, so we'll be sticking with them for now. I'm gonna go to surfaces, and we're looking for this rocky mine surface, which I've used before. So something like this looks nice. This cliff one could work. There's one specifically that I really like though, because it has some black and red. I think it's this one. Yeah, I like this one. That looks good also. Okay, so here's the thing with Quixel. People comment all the time like, oh, it's not working with Cinema4D. I'm using Arnold, I'm using Redshift, I'm using Octane. Here's what you got to do, guys. You got to go to your render settings. You need to click the render engine that you're using. So I'm using Octane Render. I'm going to click Octane Render. I'm now in the Octane Render node space, and Quixel recognizes that. So what I can do now is just send this right over into Octane, and it's not going to export as a Cinema4D material. It's going to export as an Octane material. Also, I've seen some comments about people saying their materials are coming in black or blank. Luckily, I haven't had that problem, but I do know if you do have that problem, part of the problem might be is you're not saving your project file. So make sure to save your project file first. And what I'm going to do right now is save this project file, so that way your textures can copy into your project file. So by default, we're using a universal material, which makes sense. The universal material is designed for to work with Bridge and to work with, I believe they really brought it in to work with Substance Designer. But the thing about the universal material is there's too much settings. We don't need this amount of settings. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to arrange these, and instead of manually arrange them, just left click, and you can click auto arrange selected. Then they're all arranged out for you like that. Another thing we can do is go to our displacement, and then let's do a 4K displacement for now. I'm very careful about displacements because too much displacements can crash Octane. You want to pay attention to your VRAM down here. Let's go ahead and drop this onto our wall, and then Octane is going to update, hopefully. So now we have our material dropped on there, and it looks horrible. That's okay. There's a few things we want to do. So like I said, we're using universal material. Let's change it to glossy. I don't want to deal with all these settings. And universal materials do use more, they take longer to render because there's more inputs in them. You can check the Octane documentation for proof, but it's in there. Diffuse materials are the fastest, and then glossy, specular, metallic take longer, and then universal takes longer as well, and then layered and mixed materials take the longest because you're processing more materials. Okay, this looks horrible, but it's okay. Let's make sure, there we go. Let's start playing with these render settings. I'm gonna do 2500 samples. I'm gonna clamp our GI to 10, and then I'm gonna take our parallel samples down to 12, and this is going to free up some VRAM. You just saw it right there, and that's because I'm planning on scaling this displacement. And I just noticed when I built this scene the first time inside of Octane, it would crash a lot. If I took parallel samples down, it didn't crash as much. So I'm just playing on the safe side. Let's go ahead and go to that 8K displacement. Let's do a displacement of 8 feet. That's probably too much, maybe 4 feet actually. Octane's going to take that and update it. There we go. And then something else we need to do is we need to scale this down a little bit. So let's do 0.2. And that's going to scale it like 3 times as small, I think. Once Octane updates, I'll be able to tell you. Yeah, roughly. Actually, a little bit more. So now we're tiling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When we're tiling 1, now we're tiling 6. So that looks good. Something else I like to do here is I'm going to go to our color correction, and I'm going to increase the brightness to 6. Now we can kind of see a little bit more of those details in the wall. Another thing we could do is go to our light and increase the brightness. Now these are all going to start changing as we get a little bit more into this render, but from now I keep that there. I don't see any tiling, so I'm going to do 0.15 on our aspect ratio, and it's going to take some time to update. Just remember these walls are pretty big, so maybe we'll just do, actually, you know what would be smarter to do is go to this, and okay, so like our camera is not even all the way, like we're not even using this full wall right here. If you're trying to optimize your scene, like if it's not visible to the camera and it's not indirectly causing some sort of shadow or something that's necessary to composition, usually you want it to get rid of it, because the more geometry, the more textures, the more polygons you have, the longer it's going to take to render. So let me go to quick shading right here, and let me go to this wall, and let me just make it smaller. I'm going to pause the viewport and just scale it down some. That might have been too much. We'll see. And then I'm going to slide this forward towards the light. There we go. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm just going to scale it up a little bit more. There we go. That's just going to hopefully decrease the render times a little bit. That way we're not having to load all that geometry into the scene at the same time. So we're going to wait for it to update again. And now that looks looking pretty good. Let me go to our node editor right here. Something else I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit more of a displacement on this. So let's go to 8 feet actually. And we're at 8K, so it's going to take a little bit to update. Okay, so now we're starting to see some detail there. I think that we can scale it down a bit more. So let's just do 0.1. And as we go lower in the number, it's going to start tiling them more. Oh yeah, okay, I'm liking that a lot. I'm going to go to our color correction. Oh, another thing I want to do with this is I want to take our roughness down. So I'm just going to bring the brightness of it down. Look at that. So as we take our roughness down, you can see we're at a brightness of 1 right here. As we brought it down, the surface got more wet and reflective. This is a very spectral look. I think Octane does one of the best at creating this kind of like reflective look in my personal experience, and that's why I love this render engine. We can take our brightness from 6 to, let's say, 8. And then I'm going to take our saturation down to 0.2. Yeah, and what taking that brightness up is allowing it to do is it's allowing us to bounce more light here. So it's really allowing us to fill in these shadows. So you can see right here, if I were to kind of just get this render region, we're at a brightness of 8. Compare, store render buffer. Let's take this brightness down to 1. And then compare, enable A/B comparison. Okay, we got it enabled. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so with a brightness of 1, you can see how much darker it is. And then with a brightness of 8, it kind of fills in a little bit of shadows and adds a little bit more detail into the rock. To me, this is a very CG look if your materials are too dark. And this, of course, depends on your scene and your lighting. But for me, instead of like cranking that lighting up a bunch to get these bounces, I think it's just simpler. And from a compositional standpoint, it makes more sense just to increase the brightness of the material. So like I always say, you know, when you're doing lighting, you're also really working with materials at the same time. Anyone who knows how to do CG lighting is going to definitely consider the materials, because the materials have such an impact on how the lighting reacts. So let's go back to this and let's take our brightness up to 8 again. And now we're getting some more of that balanced light. So speaking of materials, that is our wall material, and we're going to create at least 2 more probably. So let's make our second one. We're just going to do a regular old glossy material for this surface texture right here. So what we want to do with this floor texture is bring some detail and some interest into this floor. It's very boring. It's just this plain white surface, and currently it is diffuse, which not a fan of diffuse. So we're going to switch from a diffuse material model to a glossy material model. We'll switch over to glossy, and now we have this great, nice reflection. And what I'm going to do here is drag out, and then RGB spectrum. Here we go. We'll drag that in right there. We're going to bring this. Right now it's pretty white. It's like 95% white. The wider a glossy material is, the less you'll see the reflections. So as we take this down, you'll notice it becomes way more reflective. Although the reflection is not really changing, you can just see the material more. I'm going to take this pretty close to black. I'm not going to go all the way, but I'm going to go pretty close. And then all of the information and interest from this is going to come from the specular and the roughness channel. So let's drag out our roughness. Let's do a octane noise. So we'll do octane noise right there. And then what we want to do is increase the contrast. Then we have something like that going on. We're going to change our projection to a XYZ to UVW, and this is just in case our plane is not perfectly a square, which it's not. It's going to kind of do a box projection on it. The XYZ UVW is the noise space for box projection. So it's what the Cinema4D noise space works in as well. It's the UV space that they work in. Let's switch it from Perlin to turbulence, and let's crank up the octaves and maybe the omega. Let's decrease the contrast and find a nice happy medium. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. This definitely needs to be scaled up. So lock aspect ratio, or scaled down actually. I want to see way more detail in here. Go ahead and solo that. And I'm going the wrong direction. There we go. That looks nice. Yeah, something like that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and increase the contrast a bit more. Not too much. And maybe play around with the gamma. Something like that looks pretty nice. Yeah. And then what we'll do is we'll bring in a gradient. So octane gradient, drop that right there. And then I'm going to take our whites down a bit so it's not completely reflective. I'm going to take the blacks up a bit as well. So it's, the white's completely diffuse, the black is completely reflective. So we're kind of getting a nice mixture between the two. Maybe I slide this up a little bit more. No, I want to pull it down some. That looks relatively nice. We can maybe add some bump in as well. So let's bring in a octane noise again. Oh, wrong one. Octane noise, and then we'll do chips for this one. We'll increase the octaves and omega. Again, we're going to steal this projection. That actually looks like a rock surface right there. We could have done this all with noise also. So yeah, we got our projection going. Scaled up way too much. Let's do something like 5. That looks pretty good. We'll go back to 1. A little too much bump, I think. I'm gonna take off our roughness channel. Oh yeah, that's a little too small. 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. Okay, 4 looks pretty good. Let's increase the contrast. And again, we're gonna mess with the gamma. And this is just adding a little bit more detail onto the surface. I think I like that right there. And then I'm gonna add this back on to our roughness. And we have this interesting look. So this composition is pretty black and white. So what I want to do now is add some color. We could use temperature slider. Again, Octane's a spectral render engine, so this is like actually changing the temperature light versus like adding an RGB value. We'll go back though, 6500, maybe 5500. Then we'll do 5500. Under texture, or actually let's do 6500. That's daylight. Under our texture tag, you could do the texture here, or you could do it through the node editor. I like to do it through the node editor. I'm going to add a RGB spectrum, and then we're just going to change this to a color we like. Feel free to do any kind of compositional color. I'm going to go for some sort of analogous color scheme, I think. That looks nice. And then take the saturation down. Okay, so this is looking great, but it's very it feels very artificial, and I think that's because you would expect there to be some sort of scattering environment. This deep in a cave, there's a lot of moisture, and there's a lot of water and just dust in the air. So I'm gonna add in a Octane fog volume. I encourage you to add volumes in your scene in general, especially if you're not doing animations. If you are doing animations, it's gonna be tougher. Let's do a voxel size of 50 feet for now. And then we can work our way up or down from there depending on how big this volume gets. So let's make that bigger. We have 5 gigs of VRAM left, so we should be good. I know Octane can go out of core, but I've just noticed it becomes very stable out of core, so I tend to try to stay in core with Octane. Let's scale that up. Okay. Yeah, that looks good right there. Our voxel size is way too big. We're at 50 feet. Let's do 20 feet. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully we didn't just crash it. Okay, let's see. I'm going to turn off in our viewport. And then I'm going to go to medium, fog medium. And then what we can do is open up the node editor. I always just like to do it through the node editor. And then I'm going to change our absorption to almost white. Never go 100%, but you know, sometimes I do, honestly. You never want to go 100% white or 100% black because that really doesn't exist in reality. But with volumes, I sometimes make an exception. Let's go ahead and re-render that. So we're going to be absorbing and scattering white, which means this volume is not going to absorb a bunch of light, which is good in our case. What we're going for in the scene is just very thin, kind of scattered material. And then obviously we need to go density and take that down. Along with that, we can take our volume step length up to something like 10. And then we have something like this. So when working with volumes in Octane, a little side note, it's very, very important to understand the difference between density and volume step length. Density is actually how dense the volume is, and then volume step length is the resolution at which Octane is going to calculate the light bounces within the volume. So we have a volume step length of 10. It's going to it's not going to bounce that light in a very, very short distance. It's going to take 10 volume step lengths to bounce the light, which lets you render faster. If we were to take this down, the volume will start to appear denser. And if you can't get your volume to look dense enough through density, then you can mess with volume step length. That's really not the purpose. You can notice as we take it down, the render times increase drastically. So I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is just increase our density a bit. And that was way too much. So you got to be careful when working with these volumes. Maybe we take our volume step length to 6, and then our density to 2.02. And you can see Octane is starting to struggle. Let's do render region. Maybe 0.025. Also, if we wanted to, we could change our scattering and absorption. So let's just take that all the way up to get the look that we're going for. And then if we want to make it look thicker, you can change your absorption. That looks nice. Let's do volume step length to 10 again. So this is where you start balancing everything out. I'm going to go back to our scattering and make it a little darker. Or I'll make it a little darker. But we could also go to our light right here and make it brighter. So we're at 2,000 right now. Let's do, sorry, 20,000. We're going to go to 50,000. That's pretty bright, so I'm going to take this scattering color down a bit. Okay, I'm starting to like this look a lot. This is a very surreal feeling. Something else I want to do is I want to go to our camera settings right here, and I want to go to our post-processing. Let's just enable that. F-stop. For some reason, to get f-stop to work, you just need to change it by one value. So let's do default 2.8. Let's just do 2.7. By the way, 2.8 is a very reasonable f-stop. That's kind of like what a lot of zoom lenses are. So we're going to focus on our geometry on our person right here. Always add in some sort of f-stop because all cameras will have some sort of focal plane, focal depth of field. Especially in a scene like this where it's very dark, you would expect a photographer to photograph with a lower f-stop. Speaking of photography, what we could do is I could real quick just show y'all kind of the differences between different camera angle or different camera lenses in this case, or lenses, millimeters, whatever you want to call it. So we're using 50 right now. If we were to go to 15, see how that changes our composition. That looks pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Actually looks really interesting versus if we were to go telephoto. We kind of get this really zoomed in dramatic look. So maybe I'll go a little bit wider with 36. I actually like that a lot. I think I'm going to do that for this. So what we'll do here, now that I've decided to change the focal length, that's you know, the great thing about working in CG is you can do that after the fact. So it's a good thing that we can do this. One thing I do want to do is I need to increase the height of these walls to, let's say, 400 feet. Actually, that's not high enough. 500 feet. There we go. And then I need to take our light, and I want this light to engulf the composition. So I'm going to take it up all the way. There we go. And then bring it down. And just have it fill, whoops, just have it fill this pocket up. And then I want to make sure, oh yeah, so it's a little too close. Let's pull it back some. Another thing that's that we need to do is increase this floor, or just scale this floor forward a little bit. So, and the reason we want to do this is we want this light to be bouncing down the room. Something like that should be good. Yep. And then our light is still a little too short. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Of course, this is all going to depend on your composition and how you approach it. That looks good right there. Yeah, that looks great. So something else I want to do is I'm going to turn off this volume real quick because it's just slowing the heck out of these renders. So let's re-render. Typically when I'm working with Octane, what I'll do when I'm rendering volumes is I'll kind of find the look I'm going for and then turn it off. And then what I want to do in this scene is I only really want to do two more, maybe one more thing. First I want to add in another volume. So let's go to objects, light, or sorry, not volume, but another light. And then I want to take this light and I'm just going to bring it up, make it a bit bigger. There we go. This is backlighting right now. We're not going to be doing that. I'm going to get a RGB texture. See, Octane's a spectral render, so it's RGB spectrum. And then I'll drag that right there. So let's go to the coordinates of this. And let's rotate it at -90. There we go. So I want to top light this scene with a red light. don't worry, when we put the volume back in, it's going to look great. And this is going to provide some sort of fill for us, for lack of a better name, in this scene. This is not really a traditional scene. We're not lighting specifically one subject, but we are like doing some sort of landscape photography. So this is kind of our fill light. So I'm going to call it fill. And then what we're going to do is go to the light settings. Let's add that volume back in because it's going to scatter. That looks pretty cool. It's really kind of killing the analogous color scheme and turning it into more of a complementary color scheme, which looks great, but I want to keep that analogous value, and I just want a subtle hint to create some sort of color separation. So what I'm going to do is go to our power. We're right now at 100. Let's do 10. Yeah, and that's just like something very subtle that you don't necessarily like notice right off the bat. Maybe we could do 15. And that looks good. That's a really, really nice result and look. Something else I want to do is I want to take our figure. Actually, we'll do that next. I want to go to our camera. We're at 4 feet right now. We're 45 feet back. Let's go 50 feet back, see what that looks like. And then instead of going 4 feet up, let's go. Oh, we have our protect tag, so none of this is going to work. Let's take that protect tag off. Let's go 50 feet back. See what that looks like. Not 0. 50 feet back. And then instead of 4 feet up, let's do 2 feet up. It's going to drop the camera lower. And then I want to take our angle of 14 degrees and change that to, let's say, 16 degrees and see what that looks like. Okay, I like that. Let's do 20 degrees. We'll just take it as far as we feel. So this is kind of falling in that lower third, which is where it really would be somewhere right here, but I like it right there. That looks great. Let's go to this light and let's just pull it up some. And now let's go to this red light and make sure everything looks good. Yeah. This material is still pretty dark, so what I'll do is I'll go to this right here. We have a brightness of 8. Let's do 10. See what that looks like. Maybe, shoot, we'll go 20. So now this really should be filling in those shadows quite a bit. And we might have made it too bright. So let's go back down to 13. What I'm really trying to do here is just fill in those shadows a bit. I don't want to use a fill light because it's gonna backwards scatter our volume, which I'm not really looking to do. Yeah, that looks good. I did change our displacement to 2K because I was having crashing issues. So let's go up to 4K, dare I say, see what that looks like. If it doesn't crash. There we go. Okay, really didn't change that much. It kind of helped to bring out some detail. But yeah, this looks really, really nice. There's one more thing I want to do, I think, and I want to play with this. I want to play with this volume right here and get it to scatter. Maybe if we see if we can increase or decrease our render times. So let's go to this volume real quick. Medium. Okay, density. Let's go to our render settings. So right now we have a scatter depth of 8. Let's do 10. We have a diffuse and specular depth of 16, 16. That's great. Filter size of 1.2. That's essentially your anti-aliasing. GI clamp of 10. Parallel samples 12. We got enough VRAM. Let's turn on adaptive sampling for this is for render times right here. And we could do a 2x2 group for this one. And then let's do our noise threshold of 0.05. And there should be some sort of noise thing that pops up down here, but for some reason it's not. Yeah, that looks great. And we are in the ACES color space, so this is what the low dynamic range color space would look like. Yeah, not so good. Really washed out and gross. That's why I love working in ACES right there. So, jump back into, whoops, OCIO ACES. Jump back into ACES right there. Everything looks great. Now I'm going to import our character and we will be pretty much finished. So for our character, I'm just using this Daz character that I quickly made. It's just a walking animation on like a Genesis 8 character. These Daz characters come in with so many textures. I don't need any of them. This character is going to be so far away and so small, I'm not even going to worry about texturing them. I'm just going to grab the Genesis 8 character and place it in our scene. Which we need to go display. We'll do hidden lines, then camera. Let's do perspective. There we go. There we go. So our character is huge. It actually looks cool. That's because I scaled it up. Why did I do that? There we go. Or maybe it came in scaled up. Yeah, let's go ahead and delete our figure. We're no longer needing it. Then we'll take our Genesis character. And then we'll bring them up. And there they are. Right there. Oh, I love adding in characters. It gives it such a sense of scale. Maybe we scale them up just a bit. 1.2, 1.2, and 1.2. So something like that looks great. I'm not sure if that'll come across on a tiny screen like a phone on Instagram, but it sure looks good on this. Let me zoom out. Yeah, you can kind of like, if you're scrolling, you can kind of see that. That looks good. Let me zoom out a bit. Maybe we could give them some sort of material. Let's go ahead and delete it. We're gonna keep deleting all this Daz. These are all just Daz textures. You don't need to worry about them. You don't even really need to keep the UV because I'm just gonna assign him our character a color. I'm gonna make him glossy. Go to the node editor. It's like I said, it's so far away. We'll do RGB spectrum. We don't want to be completely diffuse, so I'll go like 50%. And then, oh yeah, by the way, if you want access to the characters and textures and stuff, it's all gonna be on the Patreon, so you can check out the link below for that. And if you're watching this on the Patreon, go ahead and download it if you want to recreate the exact same thing as me. So now it's time to get ready to export this for final render. Remember, if you're an ACES like me, then go to OCIO. If you want to output into sRGB, like you're just wanting to post it, maybe do a little bit of processing in Photoshop, then you'll want to go to select OCI color space, output ACES, or output sRGB. If you're wanting to composite, then do not do this. But essentially what this is going to allow us to do is when we click render, it's going to render out exactly like that. So guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to learn more about Octane, dive way more in depth, not only technically but also artistically, you can check out the Octane Render Masterclass in the link below. Along with there's these all these assets will be on Patreon as well. So guys, thank you for watching and have a great day. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.